The lawyer's conference room felt like ice. My two sons, Gregory and Philip, stood shoulder to shoulder, blocking the chair I'd sat in for 38 years of family meetings. Gregory smirked. "You're not mentioned here, old man. Mom left everything to us." Philip nodded, cold as stone. My hands trembled as I reached into my briefcase. The folder felt heavy, packed with months of quiet investigation. "Before we continue," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, "I think everyone needs to see what I found." I placed the folder on the polished mahogany table. The weight of it landing made a sound that cut through the tension like a blade. Inside were bank statements, photographs, and legal documents I'd been collecting for 6 months. Every strange transaction, every suspicious meeting, every inconsistency I'd noticed in the months before my wife Margaret passed away. Mr. Brennan, our family lawyer for over 20 years, adjusted his glasses and looked uncomfortable. He'd always been a straightforward man, and I could see the confusion in his eyes as I opened the folder. 6 months before Margaret died, I began, keeping my voice level. I noticed money moving from our joint accounts. Small amounts at first, 5,000 here, 10,000 there. Then it became larger, 25,000, 50,000, always transferred to accounts I didn't recognize. I slid the first set of bank statements across the table. Gregory's smirk faltered for just a moment, but he recovered quickly. "I started taking photographs," I continued, pulling out a series of images. Gregory and Philip meeting with Margaret's doctor, Dr. Harrison, on multiple occasions. Always when I wasn't around, always at odd times. Here's one from a coffee shop near the hospital. Here's another from a restaurant downtown. And here's one from Dr. Harrison's private office on a Sunday. Philip shifted in his seat. I noticed his hands were clenched into fists. "Then I started looking at documents," I said, pulling out more papers. Margaret's signature on recent financial forms. I compared them to her handwriting from earlier years. "I've been married to her for 42 years. I know her handwriting. These signatures don't match." Mr. Brennan leaned forward, studying the documents I'd placed in front of him. His expression grew more troubled with each page he examined. "Margaret had arthritis in her hands for the last 5 years," I explained. Her signature had developed a distinctive tremor. "But these recent signatures are smooth. Too smooth. Someone traced her old signature, or practiced copying it." The room was silent, except for the sound of papers rustling, as Mr. Brennan went through my evidence. I could see beads of sweat forming on Gregory's forehead, despite the cool temperature in the room. "I think we need to take a recess," Mr. Brennan said finally. "This is highly irregular. If there are questions about the validity of Mrs. Hartford's will, we need to address them before proceeding." That's when Gregory laughed. It was a harsh, mocking sound that made my blood run cold. "Oh, Dad," he said, reaching into his own briefcase. "We knew you'd try something like this. That's why we prepared." He pulled out his own folder, much thicker than mine. He slid it across the table to Mr. Brennan with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Inside," Gregory said, "you'll find psychiatric evaluations of our father, dated over the past year. Multiple assessments by Dr. Raymond Foster, a licensed psychiatrist specializing in geriatric mental health." My stomach dropped. I had no idea what he was talking about. "The documents show that Robert Hartford has been displaying increasing signs of dementia and paranoid delusions," Gregory continued smoothly. "Memory loss, confusion, accusations against family members. Classic symptoms." Philip spoke for the first time. His voice was cold, rehearsed. "We've been documenting Dad's decline for 18 months. The appointments, the evaluations, the incidents. We have medical reports showing progressive cognitive impairment." "That's a lie," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. "I never saw any psychiatrist." "That's part of the illness, Dad," Gregory said, with false sympathy. "You don't remember the appointments." Dr. Foster noted that repeatedly in his reports. "Patient has no recollection of previous sessions. Patient becomes agitated when confronted with evidence of memory loss." He pulled out more documents. "We also have witness statements from neighbors. Mrs. Patterson from across the street. She reported that Dad accused her of stealing his mail. Mr. Chen from next door. Dad claimed he was spying on the house. The grocery store manager. Dad insisted someone was following him through the aisles." I felt the room spinning. None of this was true. I'd never said those things. But as Mr. Brennan read through the documents, his expression changed from confusion to concern. "There are dates, times, and detailed descriptions," Mr. Brennan said quietly. "These appear to be thorough medical evaluations." "They're fake," I insisted. I've never met this Dr. Foster. I've never had a psychiatric evaluation. Dad, Philip said, and there was something almost pitying in his voice. Mom changed her will because she was terrified of what you'd become. She told us you'd gotten paranoid, accusatory. She said you claimed she was hiding things from you, that we were all conspiring against you. That's because you were, I said, hearing the desperation in my own voice. Gregory shook his head sadly. Listen to yourself. You sound exactly like the patient described in these reports. Everyone is against you. Everyone is lying. Only you know the truth. Mr. Brennan set down the papers and looked at me with what seemed like genuine sympathy. Robert, I think we need to take a step back. If there are concerns about your mental state, we need to have those evaluated before we can proceed with contesting the will. My mental state is fine, I said firmly. Those documents are forgeries. My sons have created an elaborate lie to steal my inheritance. But even as I said it, I could see that no one in the room believed me. They were looking at me the way you look at someone who's lost touch with reality. Someone to be handled carefully. Someone to be pitied. Gregory leaned back in his chair, the smirk returning to his face. The will reading should continue, Mr. Brennan. As you can see, Dad's not mentioned because Mom made the difficult but necessary decision to protect the family assets from someone who was no longer capable of managing them responsibly. I demand this reading continue, I said, trying to regain control. I want to hear every word of that will. Mr. Brennan looked uncertain. Robert, perhaps we should schedule another meeting after you've had time to consult with your own attorney about these psychiatric reports. No, I said firmly. We continue now. There was a long pause. Finally, Mr. Brennan nodded slowly. Very well, but I want it noted that, Mr. Hartford's concerns have been documented, and that all evidence presented today will need to be reviewed by appropriate medical and legal professionals. As he began to read Margaret's will, I sat back in my chair, my mind racing. My sons had been planning this for far longer than I'd realized. They hadn't just stolen from Margaret and manipulated her will. They'd created an entire false narrative about my mental decline. They'd manufactured psychiatric evaluations, forged medical reports, and convinced neighbors to make false statements. Every strange look I'd gotten from Mrs. Patterson, every awkward conversation with Mr. Chen, they'd all been part of Gregory and Philip's plan. They'd been building a case against me for over a year, laying the groundwork to make me look unstable and paranoid. And the worst part was, it was working. I could see it in Mr. Brennan's eyes. He'd known me for 2 decades, but now he was questioning everything he thought he knew about me. As Mr. Brennan read through the terms of the will, leaving everything to Gregory and Philip, I realized just how deep this betrayal went. My sons hadn't just stolen my inheritance. They'd stolen my credibility, my reputation, my reality. Gregory leaned over and whispered, so quietly that only I could hear, "You should have just faded away quietly, old man. This didn't have to get messy." I looked at him, this man I'd raised, whose college education I'd paid for, whose first business venture I'd funded, and I saw a stranger, someone capable of destroying his own father without remorse. The will reading concluded. Everything went to Gregory and Philip, the house Margaret and I had lived in for 35 years, the savings we'd built over 4 decades of marriage, the investment accounts, even the small beach cottage in Maine where we'd spent every summer. All of it, gone. 3 days after that disaster in Mr. Brennan's office, I drove to Hartford Precision Tools, the manufacturing company I'd built from nothing over 40 years. I'd started with 3 employees in a rented warehouse. Now we had 215 workers across 3 facilities and annual revenues of $47 million. Or at least, we used to. When I pulled into my reserved parking spot, the security guard at the gate didn't wave me through like he had every morning for decades. Instead, he stepped out of his booth, looking uncomfortable. "Mr. Hartford," he said, not meeting my eyes. "I'm sorry, sir, but I have orders not to let you enter the premises." "Orders from whom?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "From the board of directors, sir. There's been an emergency meeting. I'm just following instructions." I sat in my car for a long moment, staring at the building I'd built, the sign out front, Hartford Precision Tools, my name, my legacy. And now, I couldn't even walk through the front door. I parked in the visitor lot and walked to the main entrance. My secretary of 20 years, Dorothy, was waiting in the lobby. Her eyes were red, and when she saw me, tears started streaming down her face. "Robert," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to do. They called the meeting without telling me. without telling you. Tell me what happened, I said gently. She handed me a document. Emergency board meeting, called by Gregory and Philip. They presented the psychiatric reports to the board. They invoked the medical incapacity clause in the company bylaws. I'd written those bylaws myself, decades ago. They were designed to protect the company if something happened to me. If I had a stroke, or developed Alzheimer's, or became otherwise unable to fulfill my duties as CEO, the board could vote to remove me temporarily or permanently, depending on medical evidence. They voted. Dorothy continued. 7-2. You've been removed as CEO, effective immediately. The words hit me like a physical blow. Who voted against? Eddie Thompson and Martha Rodriguez. They said the whole thing smelled wrong. But they were outvoted. Eddie had been my business partner for 30 years before he retired. Martha had started as an assembly line worker and worked her way up to VP of operations. They were two of the few people on the board who remembered when this company was just an idea and a dream. Gregory has been courting the board members for 2 years, Dorothy said bitterly. Taking them to expensive dinners, golfing trips, private boxes at sporting events, building relationships. I didn't realize what he was doing until it was too late. And Philip? Philip's been secretly negotiating with Titan Manufacturing. He's trying to arrange a buyout. He told the board that under his management, they could all walk away with substantial profits from the sale. Titan Manufacturing was our biggest competitor. They'd been trying to acquire us for years, but I'd always refused. We were a family company, and I wanted to keep it that way. Or at least, that's what I'd believed it was. There's more, Dorothy said quietly. She looked around to make sure no one was listening. Your lawyer is here, Thomas Hendricks. He's in the boardroom with Gregory and Philip right now. I'd known Thomas for 30 years. He'd handled my estate planning, business contracts, and personal legal matters for as long as I could remember. He was more than a lawyer. He was a friend. I walked toward the boardroom, Dorothy following behind me. When I opened the door, I found Thomas sitting at the head of the table with my 2 sons flanking him. They looked up as I entered, and something in Thomas's expression made my blood run cold. Robert, Thomas said, standing up. We need to talk. I'm here to talk, I said. I'm here to find out how my own company can lock me out. Thomas picked up a folder from the table. Robert, I'm here representing Gregory and Philip. The words didn't make sense at first. I stared at him, waiting for him to explain, to tell me this was some kind of misunderstanding. I'm their attorney now, Thomas continued. I've been advising them for 3 years. Margaret came to me with concerns about your behavior, about your mental state. She asked me to help her protect the family assets. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. You knew about this? You helped them? I helped Margaret, Thomas said firmly. She was my client. She came to me frightened and confused about changes in your behavior. She wanted to make sure her sons would be taken care of if something happened to her. She came to you because they manipulated her, I said. They fed her lies about me, and you helped them do it. Thomas shook his head. I saw the medical reports, Robert, Dr. Foster's evaluations, the documented incidents. I advised Margaret based on the evidence presented to me. Evidence they fabricated, I said. Gregory stood up. Dad, you're only making this worse. Thomas is here to present you with some papers that need your attention. Thomas pulled out another folder. Gregory and Philip are filing for conservatorship. They're petitioning the court to give them full legal authority over your financial affairs, medical decisions, and personal care. The room seemed to tilt. Conservatorship meant they would control everything, every bank account, every piece of property, every decision about my life. The court date is set for 2 weeks from today, Thomas continued. Given the psychiatric evidence and the concerns about your ability to manage your affairs, I believe the judge will grant the petition. You can't do this, I said, but my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. We're doing this because we love you, Philip said. And the lie was so smooth, so practiced, that I almost believed he believed it himself. You need help, Dad. You need care. We're trying to make sure you get it. I looked at Thomas. You know me. You've known me for 30 years. Do I seem mentally incompetent to you? For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Doubt, maybe, or regret. But then he looked down at the papers in front of him. What I know is that my clients have provided substantial medical documentation about your condition, he said. And that Margaret believed you needed protection from yourself. Margaret believed lies, I said. Or you're believing lies about what Margaret knew, Gregory interjected. She was very clear with Thomas about her concerns. She documented everything. I turned back to Thomas. If they get conservatorship, they'll drain every account. They'll sell the company. They'll take everything. They'll manage your affairs in your best interest, Thomas said, under court supervision. Court supervision that they'll manipulate, just like they've manipulated everything else. Thomas closed his folder. Robert, I'm advising you to cooperate with this process. Fighting it will only make things more difficult. If you have concerns about how your affairs are managed, you can bring those concerns to the court. After they've already taken control, I said. After it's too late. No one answered. Gregory and Philip looked at each other, some silent communication passing between them. Thomas gathered his papers. Your security badge has been deactivated, Gregory said. Your personal office is being packed up. We'll have your belongings delivered to your home. Your home for now, Philip added. Once the conservatorship goes through, we'll need to discuss more appropriate living arrangements for you, somewhere with proper care. They meant a facility, a nursing home or memory care unit, somewhere they could lock me away while they dismantled everything I'd built. I walked out of the boardroom, through the facility I'd built with my own hands. Employees I'd known for years avoided eye contact. Some whispered to each other as I passed. Everyone had heard. Everyone knew. The founder, the CEO, the man who'd built this company, was being escorted out like a criminal. Dorothy was crying openly as I passed her desk. I'm so sorry, Robert. I'm so sorry. I wanted to comfort her, but I couldn't find the words. I walked out to my car in the visitor lot. My reserved parking spot near the entrance, the one with my name on it, already had someone else's car in it. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the building. 40 years of my life, gone in 3 days. I pulled out my phone and called Janet, Philip's wife. We'd always had a good relationship. She was smart, level-headed. Maybe she didn't know what Philip was really doing. Maybe she could help me make him see reason. She answered on the third ring. Robert. Her voice was cold. Formal. Not the warm greeting I was used to. Janet, I need to talk to you about what Philip and Gregory are doing. They're lying about me. They're trying to steal everything. I need you to talk to Philip. Make him understand. There was a long pause. Then, Philip told me you might call. He said you'd try to manipulate me, that you'd make wild accusations. He warned me this was part of your illness. Janet, please, you know me. You've known me for 15 years. Have I ever seemed mentally ill to you? I know what Philip has shown me, she said quietly. The medical reports. The evaluations. I've seen how you've changed, Robert. We all have. I'm sorry, but I can't help you. They're manipulating you too, I said desperately. Philip told me you'd say that. Please don't contact our family again, Robert. It's not healthy for any of us. She hung up. I sat in my car in the parking lot of the company I'd built, officially locked out, legally about to lose control of my entire life, and realized just how thoroughly my sons had isolated me. They'd turned my lawyer against me. My company. My employees. Even my daughter-in-law. They'd thought of everything. 1 week before the conservatorship hearing, I sat in a small office across from Amanda Walsh, the attorney I'd hired after Thomas's betrayal. She was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Tell me everything, she said. From the beginning. I did. It took 3 hours. When I finished, she sat back and studied me. I believe you, she said finally. Those 3 words meant more than she could know. The psychiatric reports are fake, she continued. I can prove it. Dr. Raymond Foster hasn't had a valid medical license in Connecticut for 2 years. He moved to Arizona and let his Connecticut credentials lapse. Someone used his old credentials to create false documents. Hope surged through me. Can we use that? Absolutely. I'm also going to investigate the witnesses. Mrs. Patterson, Mr. Chen, the grocery store manager. My investigator is very good at getting people to talk. Over the next few days, Amanda worked like a woman possessed. She found discrepancies in Margaret's will. The signatures didn't match. The witnesses claimed to have been present on dates when they were provably somewhere else. One witness had been on vacation in Florida when she supposedly signed the document. Amanda filed motions to delay the conservatorship hearing and to contest the will. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could fight back. Then, at 6:15, on a Tuesday morning, there was pounding on my door. I opened it to find 2 FBI agents standing on my porch. Robert Hartford? The taller one asked. Yes. You're under arrest for embezzlement and wire fraud. They read me my rights while my neighbors watched from their windows. They put handcuffs on me and walked me to their car. I saw Mrs. Patterson across the street, her phone out, probably calling everyone she knew. At the FBI field office, they showed me evidence I'd never seen before. Bank records showing money transferred from Hartford Precision Tools to offshore accounts. Accounts supposedly in my name, $2.3 million over 5 years, moved in careful increments to avoid detection. I didn't do this, I told them. I've never seen these accounts before. That's what they all say, the lead agent replied. They'd been tipped off by Gregory and Philip, who'd hired forensic accountants to audit the company books. The accountants had discovered years of financial manipulation, falsified invoices, phantom vendors, money systematically siphoned from company accounts. It was sophisticated, it was thorough, and it was completely fabricated. But try proving that to federal agents, who'd already made up their minds. Amanda got me released on bail by noon, but the damage was done. My passport was seized. I couldn't leave the state, and the story made the front page of the Hartford Chronicle. Local business icon, arrested in massive fraud scheme. By evening, it was on every local news channel. My face, my name, my reputation destroyed in a matter of hours. The conservatorship hearing, originally seen as a family matter, now took on new meaning. Protecting assets from a criminal. The court would almost certainly grant Gregory and Philip's petition now. We're fighting a war on 3 fronts, Amanda told me in her office that afternoon. Probate court for the will, criminal court for the fraud charges, and public opinion. They've outmaneuvered us at every turn. Then we stop defending, I said. We start attacking. She raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? My sons made one mistake, I said. They underestimated how thorough I've always been. For 40 years, I've documented everything in my business. Every transaction, every decision, every conversation. I kept records of things other CEOs would have thrown away years ago. What kind of records? The kind that might show their fingerprints all over this fraud scheme they're trying to pin on me. I'd learned something building a company from nothing. Paper trails go both ways. If Gregory and Philip had set up those offshore accounts in my name, they'd had to access company systems. They'd had to create fake vendors. They'd had to forge invoices and signatures. And I'd built those systems. I knew where every backup was stored. I knew which servers kept which logs. I knew that nothing ever really disappeared from a computer network, not if you knew where to look. I have a friend, I said, Marcus Chen. He was our IT director until he retired last year. He built our entire network infrastructure, and he doesn't believe these fraud charges for a second. Amanda leaned forward. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that we stop playing defense and start investigating. If my sons fabricated evidence against me, that evidence will have digital fingerprints, email chains, file metadata, server logs showing who accessed what and when. That's risky, Amanda said. If we're caught accessing company servers without authorization, it could make things worse. How much worse can it get? I asked. I'm already facing federal charges and conservatorship. My reputation is destroyed. My company has locked me out. What else can they take from me? She was quiet for a moment, then, okay, let's do it. But we need to be smart. Everything by the book. Everything legally defensible. We arranged to meet Marcus that evening, at a diner 30 miles outside Hartford. He was a careful man, and he didn't trust phones anymore. When we sat down in a booth at the back, Marcus slid a thumb drive across the table. I couldn't sleep after I heard about the arrest, he said. So I did some digging. These are server logs from the company network for the past 5 years. Every file accessed, every email sent, every login and logout. How did you get these? Amanda asked. I built the system, Marcus said simply. I know where the backups are stored, and I still have administrative access that no one remembered to revoke when I retired. Over the next week, working from Marcus's house where I'd gone to stay, Amanda and I went through thousands of pages of server logs. We found emails between Gregory and a private investigator named Derek Stone. Emails about building a case against the old man, about documenting incidents and creating a pattern. We found payments from company accounts to Dr. Raymond Foster, or someone using his name, payments made by Philip through a shell company. We found evidence that Philip had been forging board meeting minutes, making it look like decisions had been made that never actually happened. The more we found, the clearer the picture became. This wasn't just about inheritance. This was about taking over the company, selling it to Titan Manufacturing, walking away with millions. And they needed me out of the way to do it. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Hartford? This is Meadowbrook Senior Living. We're expecting you next week for intake and evaluation. My blood ran cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Your son Gregory made arrangements. You're scheduled for a 72-hour psychiatric evaluation starting next Monday. I hung up and immediately called Amanda. They're trying to have me committed, I told her. Gregory arranged for me to be involuntarily admitted to a psychiatric facility. Under Connecticut law, Amanda said, her voice tight. With the psychiatric evidence they've manufactured and the pending conservatorship, they can do that. Once you're admitted for evaluation, if the doctors there diagnose any kind of cognitive decline, combined with the criminal charges, you could be held indefinitely. They're going to lock me away, I said. Take control of everything while I'm trapped in some facility. We need more time, Amanda said. We need to get this evidence in front of a judge before Monday. But that's when things got worse. I missed a scheduled check-in with my bail bondsman. Not intentionally. I'd been so focused on gathering evidence that I'd forgotten about the appointment. Within hours, there was a warrant out for my arrest. Gregory called a press conference. Standing on the steps of Hartford Precision Tools, he told reporters that his elderly, mentally ill father had vanished, that he was dangerous to himself and others, that the family was desperately worried. The local news ran the story on every channel. Elderly fraud suspect vanishes before psychiatric evaluation. I couldn't go home. I couldn't use my credit cards. I couldn't even show my face in public without someone recognizing me and calling the police. Marcus helped me. He let me stay in his guest room. He brought me food and supplies. He didn't ask questions when I spent 16 hours a day going through server logs and financial records. We're close, Amanda told me on the phone. We have enough evidence to show the offshore accounts were created using stolen identity information, that the forensic accounting report was commissioned before the accounts were even discovered, that Gregory paid off 3 neighbors to make false statements. But the conservatorship hearing is in 5 days. If you don't appear, they win by default. If you do appear, you'll be arrested immediately and probably institutionalized. What about the evidence we've gathered? I'm filing emergency motions. But judges are skeptical of defendants who are currently fugitives. They think you're running because you're guilty. I sat in Marcus's guest room, surrounded by printouts and documents, and realized how perfectly Gregory and Philip had planned this. Every move I made to defend myself looked like the actions of a guilty, unstable man. If I ran, I looked guilty. If I turned myself in, they'd lock me away. If I fought, I looked paranoid. If I didn't fight, I lost everything. It was a trap with no exits. That's when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. They killed her. Check the medical records. Attached was a photograph of a hospital chart, Margaret's name at the top, and medication orders that made my blood run cold. I stared at the text, at the attached image. The sender's number was blocked, untraceable. But the message was clear. This went deeper than inheritance fraud, deeper than stealing a company. My sons might have killed their own mother, and I was the only one who could prove it. Amanda filed an emergency subpoena for Margaret's complete medical records. It took 72 hours, but when the documents arrived, what we found made my hands shake. In Margaret's final 2 weeks, her pain medication had been dramatically increased. Not by her primary oncologist, Dr. Harrison, but by someone else. The orders were signed by a nurse practitioner named Craig Sutton. Who was Craig Sutton? Amanda asked. I remembered then, Gregory mentioning a friend from college who'd gone into nursing. Someone he'd stayed close with over the years. Someone he'd helped get a job at Hartford General. He's Gregory's friend, I said. They went to college together. Amanda pulled Craig's employment records. He'd worked at Hartford General for 3 years. His specialty was palliative care. He had prescription authority for pain management. Phone records showed Gregory had called Craig 17 times in Margaret's final month, including 3 calls in the last 48 hours before she died. We need to talk to this Craig Sutton, Amanda said. But when we tried to find him, we discovered he'd moved. 3 days after Margaret's death, he'd relocated to Portland, Oregon, put in his resignation via email. No forwarding address. No explanation. Amanda's investigator, a former police detective named Sarah Brennan, tracked him down through old credit card records and utility bills. She flew to Portland and showed up at his apartment. What came back was a video deposition that changed everything. Craig sat in a cheap apartment, looking gaunt and tired. He'd lost weight. He had dark circles under his eyes. When Sarah showed him Margaret's medical records, he started crying. I didn't think it would go this far, he said on the video. Gregory told me she was suffering, that she was in terrible pain, that her oncologist wasn't managing it properly because he was afraid of the opioids. What did Gregory ask you to do? Sarah's voice came from off-camera. He asked me to consult on her case, to review her pain management protocol, said she needed stronger medications, higher doses. And did you increase her medications? Yes. Craig's voice broke. I wrote orders for morphine, higher doses than Dr. Harrison had prescribed. Gregory said it was what Margaret wanted, that she was begging for relief. Did you talk to Margaret directly? No. Gregory said she was too weak, that she'd told him what she needed. I trusted him. He was her son. How much morphine did you prescribe? Enough to ease her pain. That's what I thought I was doing. Craig looked directly at the camera. But the dosages, over those 2 weeks, they were dangerous. I know that now. I knew it then, if I'm being honest. But Gregory kept saying she was terminal, that comfort was all that mattered, that her quality of life was more important than a few extra days. What happened when she died? Gregory called me. He was crying. He thanked me for helping his mother have a peaceful passing. He said I'd given her the gift of dignity. Craig covered his face with his hands. Then he sent me money. $25,000. He said it was for my time, for my compassion, but it felt wrong. I tried to give it back, but he insisted. Why did you move to Portland? Because 3 days after Margaret died, Gregory called again. He said people might ask questions about the medication orders, that I should disappear for a while. He said he'd make sure I was protected, but I needed to get out of Connecticut. So I ran. I've been hiding ever since. Sarah leaned into frame. Craig, what do you think happened? He looked up, tears streaming down his face. I think I helped Gregory Hartford kill his mother. I think he used me to administer a lethal dose of morphine to a woman who didn't want to die yet. And I think he did it because she was about to change her will back. Back? There were text messages. Gregory showed me one from Margaret, saying she was confused, that she wanted to talk to her husband, that things didn't feel right. He said it was the cancer affecting her thinking, that she was getting paranoid and irrational. Craig's voice dropped to a whisper. But what if she wasn't? What if she figured out what he was doing? What if she wanted to fix it before it was too late? Sarah asked the crucial question. Do you have any of these text messages? Yes. I kept screenshots. I don't know why. Insurance? Maybe. Proof I was following a family's wishes. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through images. Here, from Gregory. She's asking about Dad again. Won't stop talking about him. Getting agitated. Can you increase the dose tonight? And another. Need to move faster. She's talking about calling lawyers. I think the pain meds are making her confused, but we need to keep her comfortable. Those texts were enough. More than enough. Amanda immediately contacted the FBI and the state prosecutor. With Craig's testimony and the text messages, we had evidence of at least negligent homicide, possibly murder. But Gregory and Philip found out we were investigating. Someone at the prosecutor's office tipped them off. Maybe someone on their payroll. Maybe just someone who leaked to the press. Either way, they knew. And they accelerated their endgame. I got a call from Amanda at 11 at night. Her voice was shaking. Robert, they've gotten an emergency ex parte hearing. A judge has granted temporary conservatorship based on imminent danger. What danger? You being a fugitive. You being under criminal indictment. You having delusions about your sons murdering their mother. The judge bought it. As of right now, Gregory and Philip have legal control over your finances, your property, your medical decisions, everything. How can they do that without me present? Ex parte means they don't need you there. They just need to convince a judge there's an emergency. And they did. I felt the walls closing in. What does this mean? It means they can freeze your bank accounts. They can prevent you from accessing any of your money. They can authorize medical treatment against your will. They can decide where you live. She paused. Robert, they can have you involuntarily committed, and you won't have any legal right to refuse. The evidence we have. Craig's testimony, the text messages. They've filed a motion to dismiss all your legal challenges, claiming you lack mental capacity to bring suit. That any actions taken by you or your representatives are invalid because you're under conservatorship. That's circular logic. Yes, but it works. I'm fighting it, but I need time, and we don't have time. Over the next 2 days, I watched my life disappear. My bank accounts showed zero balances. Gregory had transferred everything to accounts under the conservatorship. My credit cards were canceled. My house, the one Margaret and I bought 35 years ago, was listed for sale. I had nowhere to go, no money, no legal rights. Marcus let me stay, but I could see the strain it was putting on him. His wife was worried. Harboring a fugitive, even one wrongly accused, was risky. I can't keep running, I told Amanda. If you turn yourself in, it's over. They'll institutionalize you immediately. And if I don't, I'm living in hiding while my sons destroy everything Margaret and I built. I have one idea, Amanda said. We go public. Completely public. You do an interview with Tracy Sullivan from the Hartford Chronicle. Lay out everything. The fraud. The forged documents. Craig's testimony. Make it national news. Once the story is out there, it's harder for them to bury you. It was risky. Going public meant showing my face, revealing my location. But it might be the only way to fight back. We arranged the interview for the next morning, at a neutral location, a small cafe in a town 20 miles from Hartford. I barely slept that night. I kept thinking about Margaret, about her final days, confused, scared, asking for me while Gregory fed her lies and lethal doses of morphine. They'd killed her. My sons had killed their own mother to get her inheritance, and now they were trying to bury me to cover it up. The next morning, I drove to the cafe. Tracy Sullivan was already there, camera crew setting up. But as I pulled into the parking lot, I saw a black SUV parked across the street. The windows were tinted, but I could see figures inside. I called Amanda. Something's wrong. There's a car watching the cafe. Get out of there. I started to reverse, but another SUV pulled in behind me, blocking my exit. Men in suits got out. Private security, not police. Robert Hartford? One of them called. I didn't answer. I threw the car in drive and turned sharply, jumping the curb into the adjacent parking lot. Behind me, the security team scrambled back into their vehicles. I drove through surface streets, taking random turns, my heart pounding. These weren't police. They were private contractors. Gregory had hired people to grab me before I could do the interview. For 30 minutes, I drove through unfamiliar neighborhoods, checking my mirrors constantly. Finally, I pulled into a shopping mall parking garage and parked in the darkest corner I could find. My phone rang. Amanda, where are you? I got away. They tried to grab me at the cafe. Gregory filed a missing person report. Claims you're a danger to yourself. Every police department in the state is looking for you now. I slumped in my seat. What do I do? I don't know, Robert. I honestly don't know. I sat in that dark parking garage, 72 years old, hiding from my own sons, like a criminal. They had the law. They had the courts. They had public opinion. They had everything. And I had nothing but the truth. Which, I was learning, sometimes wasn't enough. For 3 days, I lived in my car. I parked in different locations each night. Mall parking lots, hospital garages, anywhere with enough cars that mine wouldn't stand out. I ate gas station food. I used public restrooms. I charged my phone at libraries. Amanda worked around the clock, filing motion after motion, but everyone was rejected. I was legally incompetent, under conservatorship. My sons controlled everything. Then Amanda got a break. She'd been researching Margaret's final hospitalization, following the medication orders, checking dosages and timestamps. She found something that didn't match. Robert, she said on the phone, her voice excited for the first time in days. Margaret's morphine was increased significantly in her last 72 hours. But there's a gap in Dr. Harrison's orders and what Craig actually administered. The dosages Craig gave her were twice what Dr. Harrison authorized. Meaning what? Meaning, even with Craig's orders, Margaret received more morphine than anyone prescribed. Someone was administering extra doses, and Gregory was there. He stayed at the hospital for her entire final week. He gave her extra medication himself? That's my theory. Craig's orders gave him cover, but Gregory was actually pushing the doses higher, making sure she died before she could change her mind about the will. Can we prove it? I subpoenaed the hospital's medication dispensary records. Every dose of morphine is logged electronically. Who requested it? Who administered it? And there are records of Gregory accessing the medication room, multiple times. Nurses noted it in their reports, because family members aren't supposed to be in there. This was it. This was the evidence we needed. I'm taking this to the state prosecutor, Amanda said. With Craig's testimony and these dispensary records, we have grounds for a murder investigation. But when she tried to file the evidence, the prosecutor's office pushed back. Gregory's lawyers had gotten there first. They'd filed a motion claiming Craig's testimony was coerced, that he was mentally unstable, that his statements were unreliable. They'd found a psychiatrist who examined Craig and declared him paranoid and delusional, the same tactic they'd used on me. They're going to destroy Craig's credibility, Amanda told me, just like they destroyed yours. What about the hospital records? They're claiming those are misinterpretations. that family members often help nurses with patient care, that Gregory was just being a devoted son. Every piece of evidence we found, they had a response for. Every witness we located, they discredited. It was like fighting smoke. That's when the anonymous text came again. Margaret knew. Check her belongings. The journal. What journal? I asked Amanda. Margaret kept a daily journal for years. Gregory and Philip submitted it as evidence in the will contest. It supposedly showed her concerns about your mental state. Can we see it? It's filed with the court. I can get a copy. The journal arrived 2 days later. Page after page of Margaret's handwriting, describing her fears about my behavior, my paranoia, my accusations, my instability, except something was wrong. This isn't her handwriting, I told Amanda. I mean, it looks like her handwriting, but it's not quite right. I pulled out old letters Margaret had written to me over the years, birthday cards, anniversary notes. I compared them side by side with the journal. The loops are different, I said. Look at the letter G. Margaret always made it with a distinctive tail. These are rounder. And the way she crosses her T. She always did it with a sharp angle. These are softer. Someone practiced her handwriting, Amanda said slowly. They created a fake journal to support their narrative. But who has the real journal? That anonymous text. Someone knew. Someone had information they were feeding us piece by piece. We need to find out who's sending these texts, I said. Untraceable number. Burner phone. Whoever it is, they're being careful. Someone who knows what Gregory and Philip did. Someone with access to information. Someone who feels guilty. Amanda's eyes widened. Philip's wife, Janet. She wouldn't help me. I called her weeks ago, and she shut me down. But what if she's had doubts? What if she's realized what her husband is really capable of? We had no way to contact her directly. Philip monitored her phone, her email, everything. But Amanda's investigator had skills. Sarah tracked down Janet's sister, Emily. She lived in Boston, and she agreed to meet us. Janet's been different lately, Emily told us, at a coffee shop in Cambridge. Withdrawn, scared. She won't talk to me about what's wrong, but I can see it. She's terrified of Philip. Do you think she knows what Philip and Gregory did? I think she suspects. And I think that's why Philip's watching her so closely. He doesn't trust her anymore. Can you get a message to her? Maybe. What do you want me to say? Tell her Robert needs the real journal, Margaret's actual journal, and that if she helps him, he'll make sure she and her kids are protected. Emily promised to try. 2 days later, I got a text from a new anonymous number. Storage unit, public storage on Wilson Avenue, Unit 217. Code is Margaret's birthday. Amanda and I drove to the storage facility that night. The code worked. Inside the unit, buried under boxes of old business records, we found a small lockbox. Margaret's real journal. I sat on the concrete floor of that storage unit and read it by flashlight. Page after page of my wife's actual thoughts, her actual fears. And they weren't about me. I'm so frightened, one entry read. Gregory keeps telling me Robert's getting paranoid, but I don't see it. Robert's been the same as always. Caring, attentive. But Gregory insists something's wrong. He showed me bank statements he says prove Robert's hiding money. But why would Robert hide money from me? We've shared everything for 40 years. Another entry. Dr. Harrison told me today that I have 6 months, maybe less. I asked if I could wait to tell Robert, until I figured out how to say it. But when I got home, Gregory was here. He'd already heard from a nurse he knows. He begged me not to tell Robert yet, said Robert couldn't handle it, said it would destroy him. I don't know what to do. And later, Gregory presented me with papers today. Changes to the will. He said it's to protect Robert from himself, that Robert's been making bad business decisions, that the company is at risk. He had documents, statements from board members. But something feels wrong. Why wouldn't Robert tell me if the company was in trouble? We tell each other everything. The entries went on, week after week of Gregory manipulating her, showing her forged documents, arranging for her to see the fake psychiatrist's reports about me, slowly convincing her that I was losing my mind. But in the final entries, Margaret's doubt turned to certainty. I made a terrible mistake. I signed papers I shouldn't have signed. I believed lies about Robert. Gregory has been manipulating me from the beginning. I see it now. The way he times his visits. The way he controls who I see and when. The medications Craig keeps increasing, even though I'm not in that much pain yet. They're trying to keep me confused. They're trying to keep me away from Robert until it's too late to fix what I've done. And the last entry, dated 3 days before she died, I told Gregory today that I need to see Robert, that I need to change everything back. He got angry, really angry, scary angry. He said I'm not thinking clearly, that the cancer is affecting my judgment. He called Craig and had my morphine increased, but I wasn't in pain. I don't understand why I need more morphine when I'm not in pain. I'm going to call Robert tomorrow. I'm going to tell him everything. I'm going to make this right. There were no more entries after that, because Gregory made sure she never got the chance. I sat in that storage unit and cried. For Margaret. For the truth she discovered too late. For the life we could have had together if she'd just called me one day earlier. Amanda put her hand on my shoulder. Robert, with this journal, we can prove everything. Margaret wasn't confused. She knew exactly what was happening, and she was murdered because of it. We photographed every page. We secured the original in a safe deposit box in Amanda's name. We compiled everything. Craig's testimony, the hospital records, the text messages, the fake journal versus the real one, the dispensary log showing Gregory's access. It was enough for a criminal investigation. It had to be. Amanda filed an emergency motion with the state prosecutor. She presented all the evidence. She demanded Gregory and Philip be charged with conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, elder abuse, and forgery. But Gregory's lawyers fought back hard. They filed counter-motions claiming the journal was forged, that Craig was unreliable, that hospital records were being misinterpreted. They hired expert witnesses to refute every piece of evidence. The legal battle dragged on for weeks. Meanwhile, I was still technically a fugitive, still under conservatorship, still locked out of my own life. Then the prosecutor made a decision. We're moving forward with the investigation, he told Amanda. But it's going to take time to build an airtight case. These are serious charges against prominent citizens. We need to be thorough. Robert doesn't have time, Amanda argued. Every day he's under conservatorship. His sons are draining his assets and destroying his company. I understand, but I can't rush this. That night, exhausted and desperate, I made a decision. I was done hiding. I was done running. If they were going to take me down, I was going to make them do it publicly. I called Tracy Sullivan at the Hartford Chronicle. I want to do that interview, I said. Tomorrow. Public location. Lots of witnesses. Let Gregory try to grab me in front of cameras. We arranged to meet on the steps of the Hartford County Courthouse at noon. Tracy's camera crew would be there. Other news outlets would be invited. Amanda thought it was too risky, but I was out of options. The next morning, I put on my best suit, the one I'd worn to board meetings for 40 years. I wanted to look like the man I was, not the broken fugitive I'd become. At 11:45, I walked up to the courthouse. Camera crews were already set up. Tracy was waiting with her microphone. And so were the police. Robert Hartford, an officer, called out. You're under arrest for violating bail conditions. I didn't resist. I put my hands up as they handcuffed me, but I looked directly into the cameras. My sons murdered their mother, I said, loud enough for every microphone to pick up. They poisoned her. They stole from her. They lied to her. And now they're trying to bury the evidence by burying me. But I have proof. Margaret's journal, hospital records, text messages. It's all real. It's all true. And they can't hide it anymore. The police led me away, but the damage was done. The statement was on camera. The story was out there. Gregory couldn't stop it now. In the holding cell, Amanda visited me. That was either brilliant or suicidal, she said. Maybe both. The prosecutor just called. Your statement has forced his hand. He's fast-tracking the investigation. The media attention is too intense to ignore. What about the conservatorship? Emergency hearing tomorrow. I'm arguing that the new evidence invalidates the basis for the conservatorship, that you were right all along, and your sons are the criminals, not you. Will it work? She met my eyes. I don't know, but at least now we're fighting. That night, alone in a cell, I thought about Margaret, about the last entry in her journal, about how close she'd come to fixing everything. If she'd called me one day earlier, if Gregory hadn't increased the morphine, if I'd paid attention sooner to the signs something was wrong. But there were no do-overs. There was only what came next. And I was going to make sure Gregory and Philip paid for what they'd done. The emergency hearing happened faster than anyone expected. Public pressure was too intense. My statement outside the courthouse had gone viral. News outlets across the country were covering the story. Connecticut sons, accused of murdering mother for inheritance. But Gregory wasn't going down without a fight. When I was transported from holding to the courthouse, I saw him in the hallway. He looked tired, thinner. The smirk was gone. For the first time since this began, he looked scared. Good. The hearing room was packed. Press in the gallery. Amanda beside me. Gregory and Philip sitting with their team of lawyers across the aisle. Thomas Hendricks was still there, but he looked uncomfortable now, avoiding eye contact. Judge Patricia Morrison presided. She was known for being tough but fair. I just hoped fair would be enough. Amanda stood to present our case. She laid out everything. Craig's testimony about the morphine, the hospital records showing Gregory's access to the medication room, the dispensary logs proving Margaret received more morphine than prescribed, the real journal versus the fake one. Your Honor, Amanda said, Margaret Hartford discovered her sons were defrauding and manipulating her. She expressed her intention to correct her will and reveal the truth. Before she could do so, Gregory Hartford, with the help of Craig Sutton, administered lethal doses of morphine that caused her death. Gregory's lead attorney, a shark named Richard Paulson, countered immediately. These are desperate accusations from a man facing serious criminal charges himself. Craig Sutton is a troubled individual whose testimony is unreliable. The journal, Mrs. Walsh presents, cannot be authenticated, and hospital records show only that Mr. Hartford was a devoted son caring for his dying mother. The judge listened to both sides. Then she turned to Gregory. Mr. Hartford, do you wish to make a statement? Gregory stood. He looked directly at the judge, his expression sorrowful. Your Honor, my father is sick. He's been sick for years. We've tried to help him, to protect him, but he's turned this into a conspiracy theory. My mother died of cancer. It was heartbreaking, but it was natural. I was with her because I loved her, because I wanted to comfort her in her final days. He was good, calm, believable, playing the grieving son perfectly. Then the judge turned to Philip. Mr. Hartford, do you have anything to add? Philip stood, and something in his face was different. The cold certainty was gone. He looked broken. Your Honor, he began, his voice shaking. I need to tell the truth. Gregory's head whipped around. Philip, don't. But Philip wasn't looking at Gregory. He was looking at me. Dad, I'm so sorry. Gregory made me do it. He said we'd lose everything if we didn't. He said you were going to sell the company and retire, and we'd get nothing. He convinced me we deserved it, that we'd earned it. Philip, Gregory hissed. Shut up. I helped him forge documents, Philip continued, tears streaming down his face. I helped him create the fake psychiatric reports. I paid off witnesses, but I didn't know about Mom. I swear I didn't know what he was going to do. The courtroom erupted. Reporters were on their phones. Gregory was shouting at Philip. The judge was banging her gavel. Order, Judge Morrison commanded. Everyone sit down. When the room quieted, she looked at Philip. Mr. Hartford, do you understand what you're saying? Are you testifying against your brother? Yes, Your Honor. I can't do this anymore. I can't live with what we did. He turned to Amanda. I'll tell you everything. All of it. The planning, the forged documents, the offshore accounts, how Gregory orchestrated everything. I'll testify in exchange for immunity. Gregory lunged at Philip. It took 3 bailiffs to restrain him. He was screaming obscenities, calling Philip a traitor, threatening him. It was over. Judge Morrison called for a recess. In the hallway, Amanda pulled Philip aside with prosecutors present. He told them everything. The conspiracy had started 4 years ago when Gregory's gambling debts reached catastrophic levels. He owed money to dangerous people who weren't patient about repayment. Philip had his own problems. Bad investments. A lifestyle he couldn't afford. 2 mortgages underwater. They needed money desperately. And they decided the fastest way to get it was to take everything from me. They started slowly, planting seeds of doubt about my mental state, showing Margaret edited videos that made me look confused or angry, creating fake incidents with neighbors. When Margaret was diagnosed with cancer, they saw their opportunity. They isolated her, convinced her I couldn't handle the truth, got her to change her will while she was weak and scared and medicated. But Margaret started to see through it near the end, started asking questions, demanding to see me, talking about fixing her mistakes. That's when Gregory made the decision. She had to die before she could change anything back. He convinced Craig to increase her morphine, using the excuse of pain management. Then he personally administered additional doses, far beyond what any doctor ordered. Margaret died of respiratory failure, caused by opioid overdose. Murder, dressed up as mercy. With Margaret dead and the new will in place, they moved on to phase 2, destroying me. The fake psychiatric evaluations, the fraud charges, the conservatorship, all designed to take control of everything while I was locked away, unable to fight back. Philip's testimony laid it all out. Names, dates, dollar amounts, who did what, and when. When we returned to the courtroom, Judge Morrison had made her decision. The conservatorship is immediately suspended, she announced. Mr. Robert Hartford is restored to full legal capacity. All assets are to be unfrozen pending further legal proceedings. She turned to Gregory. Mr. Gregory Hartford, based on the testimony presented, I'm remanding you to custody pending investigation into the death of Margaret Hartford. Bailiffs took Gregory into custody. He didn't fight. He just stared at Philip with pure hatred. The judge continued. Mr. Philip Hartford, based on your cooperation, I'm releasing you on your own recognizance pending further proceedings. However, you are not to leave the state or contact your brother. Then she looked at me. Mr. Hartford, I apologize for what you've endured. The system failed you. I hope we can now provide you with some measure of justice. I nodded, unable to speak. It was too much, too fast. After months of fighting, of losing, of running, it was finally turning around. But it wasn't over yet. As we left the courthouse, Richard Paulson, Gregory's lawyer, stopped us in the hallway. This isn't finished, he said coldly. We have one more card to play. He handed Amanda a document. A second will, found in Margaret Hartford's safety deposit box, dated 1 week before her death, properly witnessed and notarized. It leaves everything to charity. Nothing to Robert, nothing to the sons. Amanda scanned the document. Her face went pale. If this is valid, Paulson continued, then everyone loses. All this fighting, all this investigation, and nobody gets anything. He walked away, leaving us standing in the hallway. Is it real? I asked Amanda. It looks real. But so did everything else Gregory forged. Can we prove it's fake? We'll need forensic document analysis. That takes time. Time. Always more time. More fighting. More uncertainty. I walked out of the courthouse to a mob of reporters. They shouted questions about Margaret, about Gregory, about the will. I pushed through them without answering. I just needed to breathe. To think. At the bottom of the courthouse steps, I saw Gregory being led to a police transport vehicle. Our eyes met across the crowd. He smiled. Not the smirk from before. Something darker. More knowing. He mouthed words I could barely make out. You haven't won yet, old man. The police car drove away, taking him to county jail. But his words echoed in my mind. He was right. This second will meant months more of legal battles. Maybe years. Even if Gregory went to prison for murdering Margaret, the inheritance question remained. I'd won my freedom. I'd exposed the truth. But I might still lose everything Margaret and I built together. And somewhere, Gregory was probably laughing about that. 6 months later, I stood at Margaret's grave with a bouquet of white roses, her favorite. So much had happened since that day at the courthouse. Gregory's trial had been swift. Craig Sutton's testimony, combined with Philip's, left no reasonable doubt. The jury convicted him of conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, fraud, and a dozen other charges. 22 years in prison. Philip received probation in exchange for his cooperation. But I told him never to contact me again. Some betrayals destroy relationships beyond repair. He'd helped plan my destruction, even if he hadn't known about Margaret's murder. I couldn't forgive that. The second will Gregory's lawyer produced turned out to be his final desperate forgery. Forensic document analysts proved the signatures were traced. The witnesses had never actually seen Margaret sign it, and the date stamp on the notarization was from a machine Gregory had purchased online. It was his insurance policy, created after the murder, when he realized his plan might unravel. One last attempt to make sure if he went down. I lost everything too. But it failed. The probate court eventually found an earlier will, one Margaret had hidden in her personal belongings. Before the manipulation, before the cancer diagnosis, before my sons decided to destroy their own family. That will divided the estate equally between us, as it always should have been. I received my half. Gregory and Philip's portions were held in trust, but given Gregory's criminal conviction, most of it would go to victim restitution and legal fees. Hartford Precision Tools Board asked me to return as a consultant. I agreed, but only temporarily. The company needed new leadership, younger vision. I helped them find it, then stepped back. My name was cleared of all fraud charges. The FBI investigation concluded that the offshore accounts were created by Gregory using stolen identity information. I'd never touched them. The psychiatric reports were proven fraudulent. Dr. Raymond Foster's credentials had been used without his knowledge. The evaluation sessions never happened. I was never mentally incompetent. Everything my sons claimed about me was a lie. The Hartford Chronicle ran a front-page story. Business icon vindicated after son's murder plot exposed. Other outlets picked it up. National news, cable networks, podcasts about true crime. I gave one interview to Tracy Sullivan, who'd believed me from the beginning. I told her everything. About Margaret's real journal. About the murder. About the months of fighting to prove the truth. The story resonated, not just in Hartford, but across the country. Families dealing with elder abuse, people fighting conservatorship fraud, victims of manipulation and betrayal. I started getting letters, hundreds of them. People telling me their own stories, asking for advice, begging for help. So, I did something Margaret would have wanted. I established a foundation in her name, the Margaret Hartford Foundation for Elder Justice. We help victims of financial elder abuse fight back. We fund legal representation for people trapped in fraudulent conservatorships. We educate families about the warning signs of manipulation. I used my restored fortune to fund it. Every dollar I'd earned, every asset I'd built, was now working to make sure what happened to me didn't happen to others. Standing at Margaret's grave, I pulled out her journal. The real one. I carried it everywhere now. I wish I could tell you I fought for us, I said softly, that I never gave up on the truth. The folder I brought to that will reading, it saved me. But it couldn't save you. I'm sorry I didn't see what they were doing until it was too late. A breeze moved through the cemetery. I imagined it was Margaret, listening. But they didn't win, I continued. Evil plans can be intricate, but truth is patient. It waits in folders, in hidden journals, in the conscience of those who can't live with lies forever. Philip broke. Craig confessed. The truth came out. I opened the journal to the last entry, the one where Margaret wrote about needing to call me, about making things right. I learned something through all this. Preparation meets opportunity. For 40 years, I documented everything in my business. Every transaction, every decision, every conversation. People thought I was obsessive, but that preparation saved my life. When the opportunity came, when Philip's conscience finally broke, we had the evidence we needed. I closed the journal carefully. Gregory's in prison. Philip lives with his guilt. And me? I carry your journal everywhere. The truth you discovered too late. I show it to anyone who'll listen, so no one else has to die believing lies about the people they love. I place the roses on her headstone. That's my victory. Not the money, not the company, not even Gregory's conviction. The truth. You died knowing the truth, Margaret. I found that in your last journal entry. You knew what they'd done. You knew I'd never abandoned you. You knew I loved you until the very end. And now the whole world knows it too. I walked back to my car, the journal under my arm. I had a meeting at the foundation in an hour. A woman in California whose son was trying to declare her incompetent and take her home. We were going to help her fight back, just like Margaret would have wanted. I'd learned that you can't always prevent betrayal. People you love can turn into people you don't recognize. Sons can become monsters. Trust can be weaponized. But you can document. You can prepare. You can trust your instincts when something feels wrong. And you can fight back. The folder I brought to that will reading was just the beginning. It was months of quiet investigation, of trusting my gut when everyone else said I was paranoid, of keeping records when it would have been easier to look away. That preparation saved my life. It exposed the truth. It brought justice for Margaret. I'm 72 now. Gregory's in prison. Philip lives with his regrets. The company is thriving under new leadership. My reputation is restored. But more importantly, Margaret's truth is known. Her real journal is preserved. Her murder is acknowledged. Her final act of love, trying to make things right, is recorded for history. She didn't die believing I'd abandoned her. She died knowing I loved her, and knowing her sons had betrayed us both. That's what the folder really contained. Not just bank statements and photographs, but the determination to never let lies win, to never let evil go unchallenged, to fight for truth, no matter the cost. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt like something was wrong in your family, but everyone told you it was just your imagination? Have you ever noticed small inconsistencies that made you uneasy, but you ignored them because you trusted the people involved? If this story resonated with you, please leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Have you or someone you know dealt with family betrayal or elder abuse? Your story matters. If you found value in this story, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more true stories about justice, family, and never giving up on the truth. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that it's okay to trust your instincts, even when everyone else doubts you. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it inspires you to document what matters, trust your gut, and never stop fighting for truth. May you always have the courage to open your folder when the moment demands it, and may the truth always find its way to light. Take care, and remember, preparation today is protection tomorrow.